Greetings to all. Honor of Women is organizing Honor of Women is organizing this webinar series in collaboration with Her World with the theme Feminism, a Misunderstood Concept. This webinar series is going to cover 4 topics on different days, and today's topic is the illusion and delusion of feminism. To begin with, I would like to introduce you all to our first speaker, Ms. Rakhi Bakshi. She is the founder and managing editor of Her World, a digital platform and news window which brings the articles, stories, events, and happenings with a deep perspective and diverse contemporary subjects and matters of social concern. Ms. Rakhi Bakshi is a veteran media professional who served as media advisor to Lok Sabha Speaker and also championed the cause of gender rights as director of Women's Feature Service. She has also been the show host on Rajya Sabha TV. She has worked closely with many social organizations and she currently serves as board member One World Foundation India. She is a role model for all girls and women across the world. We welcome you, ma'am. Unfortunately, Professor Krishna Menon won't be able to join us today. We expect her presence in future webinars. So proceeding further, our next speaker and today's theme will be introduced by Anushka. Over to you, Anushka.
Our next speaker is the principal feminist writer, thinker, and activist, Dr. Vijayalakshmi Nanda. She is also an associate professor in the Department of Political Science in Miranda House. Dr. Nanda has an array of publications on sex-selective abortion, discourse on the rights in India, human rights, gender and environment, and more. She has provided consultancy services to UN agencies like UNFPA, United Nations Development Programme, the World Health Organization, etc., and has traveled extensively in delivering lectures, papers, and academic research. Involved closely with feminist interventions and activism, it was under ma'am's leadership this year that Miranda House has been ranked as the top college in the NIRF ranking for the 4th time in a row. It's an honor to have you with us today, ma'am. The theme for today's discussion is both important and vital in terms of the global context, and it is also the need of the hour. While we shall be focusing on the theme, feminism, issues, illusions, and delusions associated with it, in order to inform, deliberate, and discuss, we shall also be trying to focus on other stark and glaring realities around us, like environmental challenges, social realities, ethics, and sustainable development. We welcome you all to this session, and we hope that you shall all have important takeaways from it. I now request our speakers to kindly begin the discussion. I would request Rakhi ma'am to kindly take over.
She here? I do not see her.
Yeah, I don't see her. I'll just give her a call.
Why don't you call her?
Yes, now I'm just doing that. Hello.
Proud also to introduce my team here at Her World, and also that we are collaborating with Honor of Women. It's a very, very proud moment for all of us that we've gathered, and I really welcome all of you who are watching, listening to us, also because the subject is very nice when we are talking about illusion and delusion of feminism, a subject which I'm sure Dr. Nanda and all of you is so close to our hearts. So let me begin, first of all, talking to Dr. Nanda. First of all, greetings, and how does it feel actually to be the #1 college and heading it?
Thank you, Rakhi. I think in that sense, let me first begin by congratulating Her World as well as Honor of Women for this wonderful collaboration. Miranda House is also equally, it is associated with both the groups. I can see a lot of my students who are a part, ex-students who are a part of Honor for Women. Jayam, I think, is the one who's leading it, but there are others here. I can see Ninglun from Her World, and I'm so glad to see you. Ninglun, it's really wonderful to see you here. And I see Sarah, and I also did notice that Anushka was a part of it. So I really like the way in which, we have come together so syncretically. And that is the beauty about feminism, that this kind of a sisterly solidarity, or the way in which we get linked up, that's the most beautiful part of it. So, our students have gone out to the world, they have created a little initiative, and now Rakhi, who's also a close friend, associate, and somebody I learned from, has Her World, and Ninglun is there, and then they have got in touch, and all of these great programs have come together. So I congratulate all of you at difficult times that we are living in now. This kind of a solidarity or this kind of an interconnection is very, very important, because it is not just about us. It is about those who cannot get associated, and how can we reach out to them. I think that's the issue that we'll need to discuss today. But again, from Miranda House, thank you so much, Rakhi. Thanks a lot. We are indeed honored and privileged to have received this for the 4th time. From the Ministry of Human Resources Development. And this is a legacy, a rich legacy of the college, which has been maintained. 3 years we have got it under the principalship of Dr. Jolly, and now, of course, I am in charge, so I am there to receive this. But it is also a huge responsibility, because the honor of being the #1 college also means that you have to be more accountable, more responsible to all your faculty members, to all your students, and to everyone else who's associated with the college. So I understand the responsibilities that are associated with being adjudged as #1, because #1 means that you have to prove yourself to be the best, and we are still striving for it. Thank you again.
Yeah, and let me also add that in Her World, I'm really proud to say this once again, that every day we are adding, new hands of solidarity and shoulder. Every day, I see so much of eagerness of women, girls, all kinds of other people also very eager to join us. We also have Sneh with us, of course. Sneh, somebody who's been there with us for so long. And then Sarah Munim, she's just joined us. There's also Mail who gives us some support, Nakul. So they're all welcome, and they're all, every day they're joining and adding to our numbers. And I think that's very heartening. Of course, Honor of Women, which has reached out and which plans to have a series of themes on feminism. So that's a very welcome step, and I think we'll continue this conversation and we'll continue to talk. So my first question now, not really wasting much of our time, would be to you, Dr. Nanda, that generally when we talk about illusion, people are, especially in modern times, are getting a little confused. Whether it's about walking on your choices, wearing your identity very tight,
Please, everybody, the others who are joining will be needed to be muted. Otherwise, Shamili has to be muted.
Okay. So yeah, do keep doing that. But so my question was, how do we really talk about the real feminism? I mean, and not really the illusionary world where we actually are groping and trying to understand where are we, So let's understand it much better, all of us together. Hi to you, Rakhi here, new friends, members joining in.
Yes. So, do you want me to answer? Yes,
yeah. So I would like an answer from. Yeah, yes, Dr. Nanda, an answer, because let's get there. Let's really understand and not really try and grope and try and find out, but really settle and understand what exactly feminism would mean, so that it's much more convenient to walk together.
Right. Now, I don't think there is a single definition of feminism, because I think it is for us to define it. But I would never say that there is a feminism which is real and there is a feminism that is not. So feminism could be lived experiences. It could be, understanding how one is oppressed or how one is exploited and how one responds to it. So feminism basically refers to anyone who, any kind of an ideology which is looking for equality or an equality consciousness. So in that sense, and especially at a time like this, when we are looking at intersectionality, when we are looking across genders, I think feminism means equality. It talks about equality in every sense of the term. So in that sense, that would be the first demystifying of the word feminism, that it speaks only about equality. It is talking about equality, and equality in terms of ending discrimination and violence and across genders. And of course, when it begins, it is talking about women, but women not just as one category, but women in all her intersectionalities. So you need to look at age, need to look at race, you need to look at ethnicity, you need to look at disability, you need to look at region, you need to look at all the kinds of intersectionality that exists. So feminism for us would mean that we are talking, or class or caste. So we are talking about equality. So the use of the word feminism basically emerges from a particular host of political ideologies that emerge then to understand what it is to bring about a category of people who have been oppressed for centuries. And that is why women become very essential in that context. But later on, it has been, there are various variants of feminism. So in a simple sense, there are many variants, and all these variants talk to each other. They may disagree with each other. We may agree with certain facets of feminism. We may not agree with certain facets of feminism. I personally would like to believe in a syncretic feministic idea, where we are looking at equality of women in all their intersectionalities. But a certain liberal ideology may see it differently, or a radical ideology may see it differently. So I think the idea of feminism as a heterogeneous body of knowledge is very, very important. Some people may feel that then why are you using the term feminism? Using the term feminism is therefore to kind of focus on women, in all their categories. And therefore the word feminism, as opposed to, let's say, like from the masculine word. So, equality would be too amorphous. It would not focus. So there is a need for focus. I mean, when you speak of equality, you speak for everyone. But you speak for feminism, you're focusing on women. You're focusing on women in all their intersectionalities. So I would like to understand that particular terminology from that perspective. And that is how the studies, the whole understanding of it, which has emerged either from social consciousness or from academic consciousness, it has emerged from this understanding that women, even if they are equal, have always been historically treated as unequal. So maybe there is a need for a struggle, for a movement, for an ideology which can bring about a consciousness which can result in better rights for women or greater equality for women. So in that sense, feminism speaks about it.
Sure.
Although there are many contradictions. And that's what we are discussing.
We are, of course, in a conversation about it, and I'm sure that all of others who have joined in, they're going to get more insights out of this conversation. And that's the whole idea of this series of webinars that we're going to hold now. Before I forget, yes, Ruchita, you're also there. Ruchita is somebody who's creating very good pictures for us. So it's very important to add visuals, as we know, and we are in the age of new media. And that's where also we have to see the whole perspective as to where we are putting ourselves, Another question which emerges also, and something which is, I think, which creates a whole lot of debate on all kinds of platforms is this we versus you. I mean, there is a wall, it seems sometimes, that it's about men against women or women against men. I mean, it's, as you rightly said, it's all about equality, all about understanding each other, all about holding each other's hands. But why sometimes we feel that though it's being understood gradually and very slowly, I would say, but there are still these areas where one thinks that these are two sides. Why don't we come together? Why don't we look at partnerships? Why don't we look at a team? Why don't we look at a holistic society that all of us are trying to build? So where do you think that sometimes it's been seen as women are only looking at her own choices? She's trying to direct her directions very strongly. Where do you think it sometimes gets misunderstood?
Okay, so the biggest myth about feminism is that it is only about women, in that sense that only women can be feminists. Men can also be feminists. And the other myth that is that men are only the bearers of patriarchy. That's not true. Women can also be bearers of patriarchy. So patriarchal consciousness is basically something that includes both men and women. And both men and women suffer because of patriarchy. Because patriarchy is a power structure. And in this power structure, women suffer in a particular kind of way because there is a certain kind of a oppression or exploitation that takes place of against them, which emerges from a society which sees them as inferior, which sees them as passive, which sees them as in a way in which they are not seen as equal. But with men also, there is a whole focus on the fact that men cannot cry. They always have to be protective. They always have to, take care of everybody around them. Anybody who behaves against that norm will have to conform to that norm. Patriarchy makes them conform to that norm. So conforming to that norm is actually the work of patriarchy. It is a masculine, kind of a dominant society. But any man who behaves as a sensitive person, who wants to be a feminist, who wants to be involved in a larger, context, please mute the mic.
I see a point here. Good to have
There
you.
are mics in between all the other mics. So,
अधिक जानकारी के लिए व सहयोग करने के लिए आप किसी भी स्क्रीन पर संस्थान के नंबर और अनाउंस नंबर लगातार चल रहे हैं, आप संपर्क कर सकते हैं तथा एक
Anushka, who's managing? Rakhi, you'll have to mute. Please mute everybody.
Hi.
Yeah. See, you will have to handle this because I think there is an intruder or somebody in here who's using their mic, so you'll have to handle it. I think you have an intruder, Rakhi, which is a usual thing if you are discussing feminism. So I think you'll have to, yes, Jayam, you'll have to take care, or you'll have to look at your participants and remove the person.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry for the interference.
Lock your room. Please lock the room now.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I'll do that.
Have you locked it? Now take a look at all your participants. And anybody who has to say something may please speak up in between, or let us finish our conversation. You have every right to be involved in the conversation after we finish. So please let the proceedings go as they have been structured. Okay, Rakhi, I have lost track of what you asked me, but all I want to say is that there is a patriarchal order of society. And in that patriarchal order of society, both men and women suffer equally. Women are oppressed in a particular kind of a way. There is a need for women to be, to be seen as, looking at the division of labor in the way they are seen, or as reproducing bodies, or as sexually, sexual objects, as commercially, that kind of a thing is there. So all of that issue is very much a part of the larger structure of patriarchy. Men are also expected to be providers. They are expected to be protectors. They are expected to be aggressive. So any man who does not perform that particular role, even that particular man is going to be, suffering under patriarchy. So any human being, I know of many men who have come out into the open and said they are feminists. Barack Obama has said it. Justin Trudeau has said it. There are many such leaders who have come out and said we are feminists too, because they have understood that it is about sensitivity. It is about taking care of those who are oppressed or those who are, troubled. Anybody who has a problem with a particular terminology or gets, disturbed by that terminology is actually should ask that question to themselves. What is it in your consciousness that is disturbing you about a small terminology? So that terminology is, you need not, all of us need not become feminists, but we need not hate something that we do not understand or we disagree with. You have to, Rakhi, you have to unmute yourself. I think Vijay Kumar has to be muted. He's not muted. Swapnil is not muted. Please mute them.
So, can I ask my third question, if I'm allowed to? Should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
So, since we are in a unique time, as we all know, we are in a pandemic situation and we are kind of into this together. It's unfortunate that we are seeing some of us actually even losing lives. Some of them are in hospitals. The condition seems to be not really very, very good. But at this time, everybody's also trying to bring hope. And that's what this dialogue would also aim to do. Is to how we can actually come together, and as I said, that we should create a chain of hope, of optimism. And in this, I would like to ask you, Dr. Nanda, as an institution that you're heading, Miranda House, what is this institutional resilience all about? How do you think? Any sector, for example, be it any sector, whether it's corporate, whether the policymakers are doing things, healthcare workers, frontline workers, they are all doing their own thing. But you heading an institution, how do you think institutional resilience is also working at this time to come out, more positively and to create new ideas, innovative techniques to go ahead still in this time and create and write a chapter which is more progressive and forward-looking?
I think we have all understood that these are very uncertain times and very difficult times. And therefore, institutional resilience would mean that we have to listen to each voice, especially those voices for whom things are not accessible, they are not available, or they are not affordable. So can we listen to them? Because online classes, for example, can it be made available to everyone? And who are the people who are not able to get it? How can we reach out to them? There is no substitute for a physical classroom. There is no substitute to vibrant classroom situations, but this is for a greater good. So if it is for a greater good, how can we be involved? So an institutional resilience would be that you're open to listening to everyone, listening to their voices, trying to include them in your decisions, making these decisions through a participatory learning process. We have tried to do that in our college to the best of our ability. Have everybody in, find out as much consultation as possible. So that's the number one thing. Democratic mechanisms at play where you have consultative processes trying to bring in as much participation as possible and learning from that. The second part of the institutional resilience has been about mental health. Many young people have reported being very anxious. Even teachers have reported that there is a lot of anxiety and they need to have support. They're living on their own. What is the kind of support that can be provided? So largely the institutional resilience would be to open up to mental health support. So that is a very, very important part of it. Our teachers are all available to our students in every way. However, there is still something that we need to do better. So the institutional resilience is based on an idea that is given by this very important economist, philosopher, all mixed into one. He's also an engineer, called Nassim Taleb. He talks about anti-fragility. He says, certain things are fragile, so you always say handle with care. But certain things are resilient. They are robust, they will never break. But certain things break, but they come back and they are able to cope with things better. So an institution has to be about that. It has to be anti-fragile. It can break, but it has to come back to becoming even better than it used to be. So we are looking at mental health. We are looking at how we can make things far more accessible to our students. We are looking at empathy. I think it's very important for us to be empathetic to everybody around us. The world needs far more healing at this stage. It needs people who can be healers. They have to be kind, they have to be magnanimous, they have to be generous, they have to listen to each other's voices, and they have to be open to change. And also, this is a public health crisis. This is a public health challenge. So we have to somehow get associated as gender experts, as a journalist. We have to see how the COVID-19 has actually impacted women more than it has impacted men in many ways. Especially, you've looked at domestic violence, you have looked at other ways in which informal workers, because a large group of unorganized women workers have been left out of those jobs. So how can we make it better? So I think this is where our research could be. Our resilience could also come from that. I think there are largely a lot of things, but I would ultimately say that we all need not just to be COVID warriors, but we need to be COVID healers. So we should focus on healing, because this is not about a war. This is about peace. This is about bringing about a certain understanding that this is not a so this is the feminism part of it. The feminists would like to see this. You see, that's the word I would like to use, and I've also termed it. I say that we should all be COVID healers. Any disease is actually not a war. It is a disease, and it should be seen as such. And whether we could bring about greater healing. I mean, the doctors can be the warriors, but we could be the healers, and that's where I think, as institutions, it should lie for us, our responsibility.
So this is one great take that we take from you today, Dr. Nanda. That's COVID healers. That's the term we all find so nice, beautiful, and optimistic as well. My favorite question may be, how do you think media is looking at feminism? I mean, within media, we see a lot of things, how media looks at gender, the lens that media has. How would you really look at, we have new media also, and we keep seeing all kinds of dimensions to it. Whether at times positive, at times negative as well, how media understands and exhibits, the feminist ideas on its various platforms, whether we have magazines, portals, or TV channels, or commercials. How do you think how do you think the perspective is being built up? How do you think the narrative is being shaped there? Do you see a change down the years, or do you see this, in a phase of transition? Where we are kind of fluid, we don't really understand much, and then we keep on, and then there is a backlash. So how would you really look at media versus feminism, let's say? And I mean, that's where the word delusion would come in, maybe, as to how we can get away and get more solid, about it, get stronger ideas, get clearer ideas about it. And I mean, which is good for everyone, also educating there, because somewhere it needs to also, media by its own nature, somewhere gives a message out there. So how would you really look at that?
I think this is a timed program. I can see we have 7 minutes remaining, so I'll just try to wrap this up quickly. So I think, Rakhi, you would know better than me on media. I should have asked you that question. So, but however, since you have asked me, I will try to strive for an answer. I think the major issue, I mean, when it comes to media, they have their own kind of compulsions. They are tied up with capitalism. They're tied up to a consumerist market. They will have to cater to those demands. But having said that, I think the media is also now alert, and the women's movements in India, at least that much I know, that in India, also elsewhere, have made them alert. So if there is something that comes out in the media which is not politically correct, it will be questioned. So media is now far more alert, I think. There is also that part of it which is about commodification, which will always be there in the media, the way in which advertisements look at women. That's not changing much. But yes, people are questioning it. People have started questioning it much more now. I mean, earlier there were a few questions. But again, media now is very, very distinctly, there are many kinds of media. So you have the media, which is, of course, the print media, but you also have the audiovisual media. You have a cyber media, which is all around. And people do question, and we need to be far more alert. So if you are creating an alternative media, which is believed to be gender sensitive, you need to question the contents, and a huge pressure should be there for. I think it's also important to do it from the point of view of anything which is violating human rights, which is violating human dignity, which is not, about equal concern and equal respect. I think that's the major kind of a concern we should raise. There is enough talk about how media has never really catered to the idea of feminism per se, but we cannot expect a media to be completely feminist in the true sense of the term. In fact, like women of color or postmodern feminists will say, white feminism has never been truly feminist for them. So we can all disagree on the various kinds of feminism that exist. I mean, women who live in the Northeast or live in my part of the world, in Odisha, will actually be very disturbed about the kind of feminism that you are talking about, because in the northern belt. So there could be so many distinctions. So not necessarily feminist. Nobody expects the media to be completely feminist, but it should actually be very, very politically correct, speak about constitutional rights, speak about dignity, human rights, and also about equal concern and equal respect, a sensitivity. Once there is sensitivity, I think feminism in the way you and I understand it will be a part of that media. But capitalism and consumerism will make it very difficult. And it is for us to be far more alert to question those. Let's question them. Let's question those very things. I think it's very interesting that somebody put up an ad of the Fair and Lovely and said Black Lives Matter. I thought this was a very, very apt ad, because it's not really raising that question. You're all raising questions about Black Lives Matter, but the way women and even men who have dark complexions, the way they have been treated all their lives for their complexion, for a pigment, I think it's an important point that we need to raise in our own lives. And that is where we should question the media, because it is in a way a media generated idea of beauty. And I think that's important for us to understand.
Sure, and let's thank you so much for all these ideas, very well shared with all of us. And let me inform you that at Her World, we've taken it as a campaign where we are saying no, say no to fairness schemes. And we have very interesting, campaign stuff coming on social media. So I'm thankful to my team there. Thankful to Honor of Women, which has come up with the idea of discussing all these ideas that you and I today are discussing. We'll have more speakers in our further series. We were also thinking if somebody could ask a question. I don't know, the host can decide whether we can take questions or are we ready for that or not. Jayam?
I just need one. I want to have one question. The remaining time is 3 minutes. Are you going to restart it again, or how are you going to do this?
I mean, if somebody has, let's say we can take 1 or 2 questions maybe quickly, if at all. Yeah. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question?
I mean, Anushka, can you unmute yourself? Somebody needs to answer this question. Are you going to reschedule the meeting again, continue it? How are you going to do this?
No, I think we'll have to stop in after 2 minutes maybe, if we are passing each minute. Jayam will have to take a call.
The thing is to send out another notice to continue the time. Jayam is not saying anything. That's very unusual. Jayam. Huh.
I'm just listening. So we can take up questions. We still have 5 minutes left. So I think that would be enough.
My time says 2 minutes. Okay, Rakhi. Huh? It says remaining time 2.13.
So they always say that I have been an anchor moderator and my job is to keep talking and speaking. I'll let others speak today also. Any questions that is coming in from anybody who's listening?
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
My question is that have only participated in any marching that's called true feminism, because marching in rallies or maybe called feminist in this world. So whether a marching rally put hold now?
No, I mean, I am not getting your full question, can't comprehend it fully, but what I can understand is whether you relate feminism to marches. I mean, and that's where I think we need to discuss more and to understand what we are discussing. Whether we think that, talking about women's rights or equality is all about taking only a march is not so. It's an expression again. I'm sure Dr. Nanda has an answer to that, but yes, it's a much wider world.
I think her point is that is marching about feminism? I wouldn't say so. I mean, there are different ways of practicing feminism. That could be you want to be part of a movement, but of course it has to be peaceful, non-violent march, and it should not be destructive, and it should not, bring about any kind of violence, and it should be tolerant. That's there. But yes, there could be marches that could be feminist, that could not be feminist also. All marches are not necessarily feminist. So I don't think you have to be physically or actively participating in marches to be a feminist. You could be doing your own thing you could be doing you could be writing as a feminist about equality, you could be raising your voice in your own little spaces, whatever they are. For example, you could be part of a campaign with Her World in the campaign.